Welcome to the NFL Divisional Round Sports Betting Picks video, otherwise known as Betting with Benny, here on FTNBets.com. We're going to take a first look at the opening lines from DraftKings and FanDuel and see if we can find some value for these divisional round games. So the first game up is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. These two teams played once already this year in Week 10. Kansas City won that game 27-17. Patrick Mahomes threw for 331 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. 4 touchdowns all going to different receivers. One to Kelsey, one to MVS, one to Kadarius Toney, and one to Noah Gray. So 4 different receivers had touchdown catches that game. Kelsey led the way for Kansas City, 6 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown. On the other side of that game, all the offense was provided by Christian Kirk. 9 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game. Zay Jones also had a solid game, 8 catches for 68 yards. It actually wasn't that bad of a game for Trevor Lawrence. I think he threw for 250, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So a decent game for him, but Kansas City just too much firepower for them the first time these two teams met. So when I break this game down, I get Kansas City is about 8 points better on a neutral field. They're playing at home. So you factor in that home field advantage, and it looks like Kansas City minus 10 is the number that I would have here. DraftKings opened this at 8.5. FanDuel also at 8.5, but FanDuel juiced up that 8.5 to minus 112. Both books have the total in this game at 51.5. So I do think there's a little bit of value on the Kansas City side here. You're getting Kansas City under 9. Like I said, my number is minus 10. So I have no problem laying the minus 8.5 with Kansas City here. If you can still get it on DraftKings at the minus 110, slightly better payout than the minus 112 on FanDuel. So that's the way I'd be looking to play that one. The next game up on Saturday is going to be the New York Giants taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's see. These teams played twice during the year. One of those games was Week 18. The Giants started Davis Webb and a bunch of their backups, so we're not going to take too much out of that Week 18 game. But they did play a couple weeks earlier in Week 14. Philadelphia won that game 48-22. Jalen Hurts, 21 of 31. 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, another 77 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown. Just a monster game for Jalen Hurts the first time these two teams met. A.J. Brown had 4 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. Devonta Smith, 5 catches, 64 yards and a touchdown. The Giants passing game wasn't that bad. Richie James, I think, had a touchdown and a bunch of catches. Isaiah Hodgins, guy who played well last week and has come on late in the season, he also had a touchdown in that game as well. I think this game is going to go pretty similar. When I look at this, I have on a neutral field, Philadelphia is 5 points better. Factor in home field, I get Philly minus 7. The number on DraftKings and FanDuel here is minus 7.5. I really don't want to give up that hook right there. If this was minus 7, I would be on market. Again, the hook is something I don't want to bet against, but it's not enough to get me to bet on the Giants on the other side of this game. Philadelphia, I think, is just a much better team overall. The Giants have played really well. They've gotten great coaching this year. They've done a really good job, but at the end of the day, I just don't think the Giants have the firepower to stay with the Eagles. So I like the Eagles here, but I'm not going to lay the 7.5 with them. If it dropped to 7, all right, whatever. If it was 6.5, then maybe I'd be willing to lay 6.5 with the Eagles, but I do not want to take the Giants in this one. So that brings us to our next game. This is going to be the first game on Sunday. It's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Buffalo Bills. Let's see. Buffalo is a 5-point favorite in this game. 5 points on DraftKings, 4.5 points over on FanDuel, minus 114 over there. These two teams were scheduled to play in Week 17. That was the Damar Hamlin game that got cut short. So not really much that we can take out of that game in terms of who's better or who looked good or, how one team is going to try to attack the other. So let's see. With that being said, Cincinnati 8th on the season in yards per game on offense. They're 5th in passing, 29th in rushing yards. Buffalo is 2nd on the season in yards per game, 7th in passing, 7th in rushing. The defenses of both these teams are at least decent, if not above average. So again, you just have 2 really good offenses going up here. The offenses are better than the defenses. We should see a lot of points here. 50.5, second highest total behind that Jacksonville and KC game this weekend. When I break it down, I get Buffalo is about 2 points better on a neutral field when you factor in the home field. I get Buffalo should be about a minus 4 favorite here in this game. The number is 4.5 on FanDuel. It's 5 on DraftKings. It's probably a little too high, but 4 or 5 is like no man's land, right? Like we talk about 3 being a key number, 7 being a key number, even 6 and 8 because of the 2-point conversions, becoming more of like semi-key numbers here. 4 and 5, though, in that middle ground, it's not really something that I want to get too excited about here. So I do think it's a little high, 4.5 -5, probably a little high, enough to keep me off of Buffalo, but not enough to put me on the Cincinnati side. So I have no bet in this game here. And that brings us to our last game on the weekend, which is going to be the Dallas Cowboys taking on the San Francisco 49ers. These are the only two teams here. Well, technically, Cincinnati and Buffalo didn't play, but these are the only two teams that wouldn't have met during the regular season. San Francisco's been on fire, though. They got 11 straight wins right now. Their last loss was against the Kansas City Chiefs all the way back on October 23rd. So this team is playing as well as anybody in football right now, probably the hottest team in football after reeling off 11 straight victories. You know, Dallas is a really good team too, though. I started looking through Dallas's game logs before I kind of made any decisions on this game. Dallas had 5 losses this year. Now, you could throw out the Week 18 loss to Washington. They obviously looked really good when they played last night. So, you know, maybe that was just kind of the aberration game. The other 4 losses that Dallas has this year: Tampa Bay, playoff team; Green Bay, playoff team; Dallas, playoff team; Jacksonville, playoff team. So they have 4 losses this year, and all 4 of those losses were to good teams that wound up making the playoffs. And with the exception of, you know, Green Bay and Tampa Bay, who got knocked out, I mean, Dallas and Jacksonville, 2 of the teams that are still alive here in the final 8. They also had 5 wins against teams that made the playoffs this year. They beat Philly, they beat the Giants twice, they beat Cincinnati, they beat Minnesota. So this is a very good Dallas Cowboys team here. You know, their record, again, they had 5 losses. 4 of them are the playoffs teams. The other one was that Week 18 game, which is kind of a throwaway. You know, they're a very good football team here, so this should be a pretty good game. When I break this down, I have San Francisco about 1 point better on the neutral fields. Factor in home field advantage, I get San Francisco should be favored by a field goal here. There's probably a little bit of value on Dallas because Dallas is +4 and +4 on FanDuel, +4 on DraftKings. The +4 on FanDuel is juiced up a little bit. -112 or -114. So you want to play the +4 over on DraftKings at the standard -110 juice. That's the best way to go out there and play it here. Again, San Francisco is very good. Dallas has looked very good this year as well. I do think San Francisco is a slightly better team. I just don't want to lay more than a field goal with them against Dallas. So for me, the bet on this side is actually Dallas +4. That's where I think there's a little bit of value. And over on DraftKings is where you can get it. So there you go. That's going to wrap it up for our look at the opening lines from the divisional round here at FTN Bets. Good luck this weekend, everybody.